What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to Not Your Average Meta, an MTG Commander channel dedicated to bringing you decks and commanders you wouldn't normally find in your average meta. This week's video is brought to you by our new channel sponsor, International MTG. If you're looking for competitive pricing on your favorite MTG cards, old and new, be sure to check out the International MTG store and TCG Player, link in the description of this video. This week on Not Your Average Meta, we've got a special $1 deck gameplay video that we've had on the back burners for a while now. Playing with the $1 deck means that at the time of recording, each card in the deck only cost $1 or less. We would also like to give a shout out to our second full-time channel sponsor for Season 3, the Hobby Horse in Taylorville, Illinois. If you're ever in the central Illinois area, be sure to stop in and check out the store as well as saying hi to Martin. In this week's $1 game, we have a commander matchup featuring Jacob, who's appearing for the first time this season playing Jarad, Golgari Lich Lord, Gavin returning playing Belbe, Corrupted Observer, Fallgirl playing his first ever Jeskai deck on the channel being led by Akim, the Soaring Wind, and Justin playing Talrand, Sky Summoner. Now the other fighters, let's step into the Thunderdome and see which deck will come out on top. Turn 1, Jacob plays a Snow-Covered Forest, Gavin plays a Bajuka Bog, Fog plays a tapped Mystic Monastery, Justin plays a tapped Desert of the Mindful, then passes. Jacob plays a Snow-Covered Swamp for turn, then pays 2 for a Satyr Wayfinder. He then mills his top 4 cards of his library before choosing to put a Tainted Wood into his hand. Gavin plays a Forest for turn, then pays 2 for an Archer's Parapet. Fog plays a tapped Temple of Epiphany for turn, then scries 1 card, keeping it on top of his library. Justin plays an Island for turn, then pays 2 for a Shimmer Possibility. He then looks at the top 4 cards of his library, putting 1 card in his hand and the rest in the bottom of his library. Jacob plays his Tainted Wood for turn before paying 1 for a Warlock class. He then pays 2 to level up his Warlock class, after which he looks at the top 3 cards of his library, putting 1 card into his hand and the rest into his graveyard. Gavin plays an Evolving Wild for turn and then pays 2 for a Talisman of Resilience and then pays another 1 for his own Warlock class. Fog plays a Planch for turn that pays 2 to cast Young Peasy. He then pays another 1 for Recruit the Worthy. This then creates a Soldier token and an Elemental token. Justin plays an Island for turn that pays 3 for Quiet Contemplation before passing. Jacob plays another Snow-Covered Forest before paying 4 for Sivir's Nightmare Speaker. Gavin cracks his Evolving Wilds to go get another Forest, then pays 2 to cast his Commander Belbe. He then pays to use the Parapet to have each opponent lose a life. Gavin then adds 6 colorless mana to his mana pool and uses it to cast Psychosis Crawler and a Mind Stone. Fog plays an Island for turn that swings his Soldier Justin for 1 damage in order to add 2 colorless mana to his mana pool. He then uses this mana to tap out and cast his commander Akim. Justin plays a 4th Island for turn that taps out to cast his commander Talrand. Jacob draws for turn that activates Sivir's. He then sacrifices his Wayfinder in order to mill a card off the top of his library for each of his opponents. He can then put these cards into his hand unless each opponent pays 3 life in turn order. Gavin doesn't pay the 3 life while Justin and Fog both do. Jacob then plays a Snow-Covered Forest for turn before tapping out and using his colorless mana to cast an Old Stick Fingers where X is equal to 7. He then reveals a lot of cards from the top of his library until he finally reveals 7 creature cards. He then puts the revealed creature cards into his graveyard while he puts the rest of the cards on the bottom of his library. Jacob then passes and each opponent loses 1 life on his end step. Gavin draws for turn, causing each opponent to lose a life. He then uses a 6 colorless mana to cast Bane of Bala Ged before paying to level up his own Warlock class, after which he looks at the top 3 cards of his library, putting 1 card into his hand and the rest into his graveyard. Gavin then casts a Commander Sphere before passing. Fog plays another Island for turn that pays 2 to cast Raise the Alarm, creating 2 more Soldier tokens, an Elemental token, and a Bird token. He then casts a Jeskai Banner and ends his turn. Justin plays another Island for turn and then passes. Jacob draws and pays 4 to cast Brawn, and in response, Justin casts Stern Dismissal in order to bounce Jacob's Old Stick Fingers back to his hand, which creates Justin a Drake token. Jacob then activates Sivir's, sacrificing his Brawn. He then mills the top 3 cards of his library, which has Gavin not paying 3 life while Fog and Justin both do. Jacob then uses his colorless Belbe mana to cast a Bone Horde before Justin decides to counter with an Unwind. He then untaps 3 of his lands and creates another Drake token. Gavin draws for turn, causing each of his opponents to lose a life. He then goes to combat swinging his Bayonet Fog, who exiles 2 Soldier tokens before blocking with his remaining Soldier token. Gavin then uses his colorless mana to cast an Ulamog's Crusher. Justin then bounces the Crusher back to Gavin's hand with a Geist Wave and creates another Drake token. Gavin then casts a Blade Griff prototype before passing. Fog plays a tapped Tranquil Cove for turn, gaining a life. He then swings his commander Jacob for 3 damage, which adds 2 colorless mana to his mana pool. Fog then casts your temples under attack, choosing Jacob to have them both draw 2 cards, while Fog creates an elemental token and another bird token. On his end step, Justin casts Deliberate, scrying 2 before drawing a card and creating another Drake token. Justin goes to combat, swinging 1 Drake at Jacob for 2 damage. He then uses his colorless mana to help cast a precognition field before passing. Jacob plays a snow-covered swamp for turn before paying 4 for a World Shaper. He then uses Sivers to sack his World Shaper, which brings each land in his graveyard back into play tapped. He then mills the top 3 cards of his library, which Gavin doesn't pay 3 life for, but Justin and Fog both do. Jacob then recasts Old Stick Fingers again where X is equal to 2, which has a million cards on the top of his library until he reveals 2 creature cards. Gavin draws for turn, dealing 1 damage to each of his opponents. Before combat, Fog casts Deploy, which has him creating another elemental token, another bird token, and 2 Thopter tokens before he gains 11 life. Gavin then swings his Blade Griff at Jacob and his Bane at Fog. Fog then exiles 2 elementals and blocks with the 3rd, while Jacob takes his damage. Jacob then targets Justin's precognition field with the Blade Griff trigger, causing him to sacrifice it. Gavin then casts Godfarer's Statue, which then gets countered by Justin, creating him another Drake token. Gavin then levels up his Warlock class, which has each opponent losing life equal to the life that they lost this turn on his end step. Fog plays an island for turn before paying 5 for Sage of the Inward Eye. He then goes to combat and swings his commander Gavin for 3 damage and passes. Justin draws and pays 2 for an Ominous Seas before passing. On his upkeep, Jacob pays to return a creature to his hand using the Genesis in his graveyard. Jacob then plays another Snow-Covered Swamp before tapping out to cast a Zoni Thousand Eyes. This then gets countered by Justin with an Essence Scatter, which creates Justin another Drake token. In a fit of rage, Jacob attacks Justin for 15 damage before passing his turn. Gavin draws for turn, dealing 1 damage to each of his opponents. He then goes to combat, swinging his Bane at Fog again, while he swings his Blade Griff at Jacob. Fog then exiles his elemental tokens and blocks with the Thopter, while Jacob takes his damage. He then uses the Blade Griff trigger to target Fog's Sage, having him sacrifice it. Gavin then uses his colorless mana to help cast a Terracodon, targeting both of Justin's enchantments and Fog's Banner, turning them both into 3/3 elephant tokens. He then casts a Blood Pact, which is countered by Fog with a negate, creating him another bird token and an elemental token. Each opponent then loses life equal to the life they lost this turn on his end step. Fog plays a Broker's Hideout, sacrificing it to go get a tapped plant from his library while he gains a life. Fog then pays 6 to activate his commander's ability, giving all of his tokens double strike before going to combat. He then attacks Jacob with his commander for 3 commander damage, while he attacks Gavin with all of his flying tokens for 10 damage. Justin draws for turn that takes his vengeance out on Jacob by taking him out with all his Drake tokens, before paying 4 to cast Talrand's Invocation, creating 2 more Drake tokens. Gavin draws for turn, causing each opponent to lose a life. He goes to combat, swinging his Bane and Terracodon at Justin, while he swings his Blade Griff at Fog. Fog takes his damage, while Justin exiles 2 Drakes and blocks with another. Gavin then uses his colorless mana to recast Ulawok's Crusher before sacrificing his Mind Stone to draw another card, making each of his opponents lose a life. He then uses his Parapet to make each opponent lose another life before going to his end step, where each opponent loses life equal to the life they lost this turn, taking Justin out of the game. On his upkeep, Fog draws and knows he doesn't have enough damage to take Gavin out this turn, so he scoops the game up to Gavin. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can see more games and decks you wouldn't normally see in your average meta.